All right, I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. My name's Brogan, and today we're back for another training stream. If you were here earlier in the day, last stream technically. Obviously, some of the things I'll be covering in the stream, I will quickly glance over, probably as a contextual thing, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. But obviously, we'll be trying to do some actual more new TA. So don't worry if you were here earlier on the previous stream. I'm not just gonna do the exact same thing I did earlier. I will actually add some TA. But anyway, hello to you all. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna start my timer before anything else. I'm just hold on. Okay, there we go. My chart wasn't loading. The reason I didn't start immediately was my chart was not loading for the whole time. I do not know why. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Okay. Sorry, I was really thrown off by that. It just was not loading. Okay, percentages. 0.49% up 24 hour on Bitcoin. 117,750. I think we come down. Obviously, I did look at the chart, earlier on today. But I'm trying to think back to Thursday. Exactly what I said. I'm trying to remember what I said. I can't actually remember what I said. I don't know why. I can't remember what I said. I think I said we were gonna come down. I think obviously I was looking at the retracement, but the fact was we hit all-time high, so the likely chance of us starting to move away and actually start to kind of go in downtrend in the shorter time frame was quite likely. Well, obviously we are doing that, so I think that's what I was talking about. I'm pretty sure. Not bad. I will obviously get onto that. I think today's going to be hopefully easier for me to do my charts, because obviously I'm not just going to pretend like I'm just not. It's not like I'm not going to cover the higher time frames on a Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, but I can kind of mainly focus on some of the shorter time frame stuff, as I've kind of already covered. What I feel about as a whole on the higher time frame for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, like I said. So I feel like we could probably go a bit faster. We might actually be able to finish on time. Obviously, I will not be, fingers crossing, or I will not be guaranteeing anything. I mean to say, because obviously we always know how slow I am at talking. Anyway, 44144 for Ethereum, about 0.5% up 24 hour. So obviously we've recovered a bit. I think we were down across the board, not by a lot on 24 hour, but down across the board earlier on today. Obviously I think it's a bit away from the all-time high. I still think we're coming up. Obviously talked about it on the last stream. So I'm not going to go into yap on about the same thing I already talked about. And Solana 188, 2.3% up 24 hour, not bad. I think we were looking at it coming up anyway, because as a whole anyway, obviously Bitcoin's hit its kind of concerning area, but comparison, in comparison with obviously Ethereum and Solana, obviously Ethereum I definitely think is going to hit that move upwards in the relative time frame anyway. Obviously in Solana's case, I think we'll also probably see that move up as well, a bit more anyway. But that is obviously for the charts. Let's see who's winning. Actually, you know what? I always say this. I don't know why I bother doing this, because I don't really care. At the end of it, I don't really care. Let's just move on. So, let's go to 4 hour. All right. Let's go. 2 to 4 hour. And go to which one? That's the weekly. I think it was this one. Yeah. So we had the previous range here, which I haven't updated. So I need to hide this actually, because this is not useful. You know what? I should probably put it in a new group. Actually, what I'll do instead, I'm gonna make a new group. I'm gonna make a new group, and I'm gonna copy paste the stuff we need out. Oh, why can't each copy paste them and it be in the same place? Whatever. Let's just redraw. Let's redraw. It's fine. I'll redraw it all. Which one was it again? Where was it? It was here. It was that candle. It was this. There we go. And I won't lie, I'm slightly tired. The streams are, even though you just sit here and you talk, it's a lot of processing at the same time. And I've done a lot more in between. Obviously last stream, which was earlier today, and now. So I might be a bit slower in my speech, but that won't stop me from doing the charts. Anyway, about 200, let's say, minus 2 by 400. All right, cool. So we've got that. That's what we needed. Perfect. So we need that. We probably don't need a line there. What else did I have? Which was interesting. That was pretty much it, really. It was kind of just that major resistance. Obviously, this is now all-time high, so we'll just leave that there, and then we can talk about the charts. So, obviously, the main thing for this was coming past this high here as well. Obviously, we'd already used this as resistance. Just obviously still had that marked out anyway. And then kind of looking at us continuing upwards. Obviously, we were talking since this, it was about it was basically this retracement we had from this move here, obviously coming down into this area, and then obviously producing a higher low, and then coming upwards again, and then that was pretty much it. But obviously the difference between this, I can't remember what I had drawn. I think I had this drawn. Yep. In this, and I had some lower time frame stuff, and then we would come up to here, and then obviously since we were still in this uptrend, we would have expected us to push upwards, which obviously we did in this move. And it's just at that point, it's like, okay, if we are continuing upwards and we haven't reversed from this high time frame resistance, the next push upwards is going to be the all-time high, which at that case I think, and obviously I think I've talked about again, this is Thursday. We were kind of talking about this dump anyway on Thursday, and us coming downwards. So that I'm trying to think of what I've already talked about, and if I need to update anything. That's pretty much it. I think it's mainly just talking about this move. So from there, looking at this kind of continuation, obviously looking at the 1 hour as well for the rest of it, but we've kind of had that kind of movement away, and I think the difference for this as well is it's like the first move which has kind of pushed us below the lows here and actually started to print lower than some of these areas, especially here and here with kind of all of this. And obviously on the higher time frame 4 hour and whatnot, this general area is major, one of these are kind of major low areas. If you like argue about here, here as well, I would argue is a because again you've had that expansion already and then had that or retracement downwards. Again, comparison to expansion anyway, this is the move, and then we had this retracement, so clearly a low here which we have printed past, so we are clearly in this move downwards. I think for me as well, it's like this move was what spawned that move down, like as I just said. It's kind of spawned that okay, we've printed past the low, where it starts to move down now, and we haven't had a massive retracement. So I do think, again, looking at the price action we've had so far with all this, it's definitely going to be some tasty stuff back up here. So I do think price will continue to probably look at that. But the important part as well is we saw this high, we didn't get anywhere up here. So what we can do is look at it on the 1 hour and look at it relative to the 1 hour and look at some of these retracements towards here. I don't think it necessarily has to guarantee us coming back up towards 121k and seeing resistance in this area, but I do think at least with this kind of range of the move coming from about 121.6, this is a massive move downwards. It makes sense though. Like this, I'm not surprised we've had this massive expansion considering where we got to and where we've come from. Difference to this as well, obviously on the 1 hour we did print above that high. It doesn't really matter to be fair because we've printed past these lows, so it's not like it's anything of importance in terms of, oh, we're still going up. We have properly printed down the lows on the 1 and the 4 hour, so I can still talk about us coming downwards. So the two things I can talk about, as usual, is either going to be producing a lower high or producing a lower low and aiming for the lows, and it's kind of just the balance of where we're going to hit. So obviously, as I've just drawn with that 1 hour kind of thing we've got going on, we do have this kind of really choppy kind of consolidation-ish, like especially with this, it's like we have a clear range here with this in between here and here, and we're kind of just doing our thing here. We do potentially have support in this area. I should probably draw it here actually, in this area. If we draw this, because we have these massive wicks and then move down and then a massive pump from this candle. So what I will draw, where is it? What am I doing? I'm a bit. I feel physically slow. Sometimes I start these streams and I know I'm a bit tired, but I carry on going. It's like, okay, cool, it's fine. I'll just be a bit tired. I physically feel slow. So this. I think the yin and yang of this stream is definitely going to be, okay, cool. Yeah, I've already talked about the high time frame, but I feel slow as hell. Anyway, moving downwards. Obviously coming past this area. And obviously old areas, and obviously coming to an area important, especially with this kind of gap here, kind of sitting obviously in between this area and this area, coming to fill this. Not saying this is a massive retracement. What I actually do want to do, to be fair, is I do want to look for how we're moving so far
on this trend. So obviously we've whipped past this high. We have printed in terms of, we technically have printed above the high here and had this retracement. I think the major low on the daily time frame is definitely going to be that 116.3 area, which we are obviously barreling towards right now. Important thing to mention as well is we have high time frame high here with the all-time high. We have wicked past it. Looking at this singular candle of importance, and then had this engulfing candle, this massive dump downwards. So I definitely think we probably have kind of a bit of a stacked resistance here as well, and technically also propulsion in the sense that we've come into this resistance area, and obviously on the 4 hour anyway, and then we have on the daily. I know this is, to be fair, actually I'm looking at the 4 hour and then looking at the daily, regardless of if it's what propulsion or not, it is still technically resistance area. So I will have this on a bit of a longer term thing, just to pay attention to. Was this where we formed it, or was this resistance? I think this is in this wick. I'm going to draw it on this wick. Right, yeah, cool. So that kind of makes sense. That makes sense why we kind of stopped out here a bit more. So obviously, I wasn't confused, but I was like, okay, we've had this massive expansion downwards. Why have we not retraced upwards? I personally believe it's because we have had that daily resistance being formed. Obviously, as I've just mentioned, coming above a higher time frame point of interest, or in this case, relative time frame, because again, it depends. Again, it is just the point of interest. Again, if you go the weekly, this is the point of interest, so it doesn't matter. Wicking above that, coming to this area in this move, and then having this candle. If we kind of compare these two last candles before the expansion downwards, this is clearly just a weaker candle, if you will. Obviously, I'm explaining this horribly, but this is obviously expansion downwards and engulfing this candle. So this candle will be the resistance candle. So if we then look at that on the 4 hour perspective, we can see we basically found in this attempt to move back upwards, because obviously we came past basically all these lows, and actually came even into this gap here, which we basically nearly wicked to the midpoint nearly of this old gap here, and then obviously found a decent low to aim for. Because again, I mean, the thing is as well, it's like whenever I draw these ranges, it's not a guarantee of, oh yeah, these ranges, we can't see a low unless it's in a retracement point. Because again, at the end of the day, it's like, yes, you can. It's if I was to just draw ranges with these, magical lines, I might as well be looking at, some oscillator. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not like the lines aren't to replace my analysis of the actual price action. It's just a general kind of I could do the exact same thing I normally do without this area. I could do the retracement lower in an uptrend or downtrend. I could do the retracement with just this, and it's just a premium discount with this equilibrium and aiming for, okay, well, we have this major gap. The latter end of it is up to here, so looking to come up into this resistance. On the higher time frame, we have this resistance with a midpoint about 121, which is above the equilibrium, so that's where I would expect the midpoint to be. So it's not like I don't use them in the sense of a resistance, so we can still look back at our price action and go, okay, cool. We have a big candle here. There's bigger candles, there's smaller candles. This is a big candle here, big gap here anyway. Obviously, we did use this on our way upwards. Same thing here. We formed this, but then continued to break away from it, and then didn't get back to it. In this case, we kind of just did equal lows here, but we did do a candle downwards with these candles going up. We didn't really do any expansionary. I would like to see what this is on the 1 hour, though, to be fair. Probably looking at this candle, if we look at us forming this gap on the 1 hour, I know I'm yapping a bit here. Forming this gap on the 1 hour, coming to the midpoint with this candle, then printing upwards with this candle here. Clearly, this is going to be our support or order block, whatever. We can see we wicked into it. This will be a propulsion block as well here. We can see if we draw that across, we can see we fulfilled this and came to the midline of it here actually as well. Also looking at this one, yes, this is also support. There we go. So we can see, we basically wick to the higher this, lower this, whatever. But as we go for these propulsion blocks, like it's basically just producing order blocks on the way up. We have this candle, which is coming to a point of interest. So again, a gap, a major gap here. I know I'm yapping. I do apologize. I know I'm supposed to be looking at the current time here, but I like this. Just feed into it. Okay, I like doing this. All right, even if it's just for me and no one cares, I'm still gonna do it because I enjoy doing it. In terms of just like,
it's kind of just like rubber ducking, if you know what I mean. I don't know if you guys know what rubber ducking is. It's like when you have a problem and you don't have to solve it. I'm not saying this is a problem, but I like speaking out loud. So if no one is interested, then you know what I mean. Don't worry, I'll resume schedule in a minute. But in terms of forming these supports from these, okay, well we have a reason for a low here. We have you know, quote unquote liquidity or whatever people want to call it in this expansionary gap here in between here, coming to roughly the midpoint. Obviously we saw on the 1 hour coming to the midpoint as well, forming this candle with this engulf. This is now resistance or support. This is actually also support one here in this candle. We come into it, we engulf, and then we come upwards. We can see we use this relative here, we come back down, we use it, we engulf in this one. This is now support, as I've just talked about. So these are all support points on the way up. So this is another thing I know I like to watch for as well. So not only highs and lows, all these sorts of things, but I also pay attention to, because again, I said this in my morning stream as well, on it's not my morning stream, it was the market watch thing. It was, you know, obviously me, Mike, and Yikes, so it's not just it wasn't my stream, but obviously the charts was kind of a heavily dominated area, because you know, I can't blame it, because you know, I am the chart person, so you know, I spoke a lot. But you know, this is another thing I like to watch for, in my opinion anyway, looking at these areas where you have these candles where you come into a point of interest. I mean, because again, you can't just willy-nilly draw things. You might as well just draw. You might as well just draw random, you know, symbols on your charts and hope the best. But there has to be reason for the price to do this, and the idea is obviously coming into an area of support, aka this expansion candle, where there could be outlying orders or whatever you want to coin it, coming to this area and then reversing from it and engulfing in this candle, having a response from this area. And then the idea is anyway that upon using these areas with another engulfing candle is going to also form support. So the same thing here, where we form this, we use it, we come back into it, we engulf with this candle. This is now support. We come into this area again, we have this candle downwards, we engulf it with this, you can see here, and then we come across, we use the same thing here. And it's kind of the same thing. We don't really have much here. There's not really much, you know, there's not really much of an engulfing candle per se. I mean, you could probably argue, you can see this down move with this move upwards. This isn't really much of a response per se in a singular candle. I mean, we could test it though. We can test it. We can see like it kind of misses it. It doesn't really use it. But what we do see, to be fair, is we have this, and then we wick back into the midpoint with this candle, and we can see we print with this here. So this range, although big, is also relatively going to be a support point. We can see we wick to the midpoint here. We don't really have that response. We wick back in, we print back up into it, and then we expand with this one. So obviously I will be looking at this as well. And in this case, again, you can't just willy-nilly draw things. You have to pay attention to the market. And in this case, we are expanding downwards from the all-time high. But in an uptrend, ceteris paribus, you know, you've not just hit a weekly high or the all-time high of your coin. You can trade the trend by just drawing out these order blocks and these as support. But I'm going to delete all of this now, and then, you know, because it's kind of messy. There we go. I mean, you could probably also, if you're in an uptrend and you know you're in an uptrend, you can do these like mini areas. Like you can draw this, for example, and then you can go into the 15-minute, let's say, and then look at it. That's not where I am. Here we go. So it's like, okay, you have the low to the high, and then you can see we come to this area. What do we have? We kind of we have this here. So we kind of have a order block here. We can see we kind of expand away from it, and then we produce another one here. So we have kind of this area to pay attention to. We can see we wick here, and then we kind of dump past the lows. But you know, no, I need to stop. I'm yapping. I know I am. I need to stop. Okay, pretend I didn't do any of that. I'm getting carried away. Sorry, I need to focus. Okay, price action. I was looking at, okay, yeah, so I was looking at that resistance we had on the daily from that massive order block, from wicking past this high and producing the order block on this massive stint here. Because obviously, if you kind of look at it, you can clearly see, you know, green candle, black candle, or red candle, if you will. Green candle, you know, black candle coming past this. This is now resistance. So looking at this, you know, looking at the bottom of it, looking at midpoint of it, all that sort of stuff, and kind of all basically this area, you know what I mean? This kind of general area in between this whole kind of 118.9 to 121.2. We can see we have this really tight print, you know, just about maybe like, you know, $200-$300 away from that max high. Because again, this is a daily thing on the 1 hour. It's not going to be pinpoint. You know, it's very hard for it to be pinpoint if it's daily to the 1 hour. But we can see we respect, especially on the 4 hour, we use it really nicely
obviously, if you just look at the candle bodies, we barely go above it, and then we dump back down. So that's why that's kind of my explanation of why we have that premature resistance, and then obviously we've started to come downwards. So I wouldn't. Again, I'm not saying that we can't go to 122. And again, looking at this expansion, I would really expect price to want to come to this area. Especially seeing as though the expansion we've had, albeit is a good expansion, isn't super strong. And considering the retracement we're having isn't to, we're not like pumping upwards and then dumping again. We're having a really just slow move back upwards. I don't expect this to be major resistance. I could expect prices to kind of tickle up a bit higher maybe. But again, obviously, I could be very, very wrong there. But again, I wouldn't. Again, this is still an expansionary move, which we have produced and probably will continue to kind of come back up into this area. But I think the general thing I can leave off with Bitcoin is I could expect price to continue downwards, regardless of what we have on the 1 hour, 4 hour, regardless of where the high is going to be. I think we're going to continue downwards. But if you look at on the 4 hour and the 1 hour, technically we clearly can see the downtrend of high to the low. We clearly have a high at around 119. So if we start printing above that, it's going to be a bit choppy. It's going to be, oh, well, we've printed above a high, but it's not really major high and all that sort of stuff. But if we look at the daily, we've just started this move downwards, and I do definitely think we could start to get past some of these lows here. Once we start to get past towards 116, that's when it starts to get really serious in terms of the move across the board, in my opinion anyway. Obviously, coming downwards to some important areas. Obviously, these lows will be very important. Just looking at this whole gap area, these lows, 109, to be very, very important if we do respond with this move downwards. But if we look at it as well on the daily anyway, at major high to major low, this is definitely going to be the low. So in terms of not like it's not going to work, but in terms of a late confirmation that we have seen a low. This is actually also an order block, to be fair, as well. If we look, downtrend last candle, we've come into obviously support area, so just watching for this engulf, we can actually see we produced this on the way upwards. So if we have this, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. You can see we actually use it here as well. We didn't really do anything with this. This didn't really print properly, so not really too much of a resistance there. But we did expand the way, producing a gap here, so obviously found support in this area. But obviously we did actually form something on the way down, or on the way back upwards anyway. So that could be something to pay attention to. So yeah, I think even though on the translation to the 1 hour and the 4 hour, these kind of intermediary lows, if you go onto the 1 hour, the 4 hour, whatever you want to look at, these are definitely going to be major lows on these relative timeframes. So yes, if we start, we've already started this, especially this is one of the major ones at about 118. We've already printed past this, so we should expect us to continue lower and continue down. And not only do we have this resistance. So even if we print above 119, I don't really care, because we have this massive expansion which will continue to push us downwards. Even if you go to the 4 hour, this isn't really relatively a super strong, massive high. I could expect price to continue downwards, even if we kind of shimmy back upwards through this move. But again, pay attention to 1 hour, or just pay attention to what we still have. I could expect price to continue downwards. We also have like all these kind of wicks here. Obviously, we have the gap. We've kind of shimmied. We have all these highs here. I could expect price to continue to push up a tiny bit more towards 118. We could continue to resistance and then aim for the lows again. Once we start getting past some of these areas, especially on the 116, like I said, that's when we start to have major higher time frame lows being kind of moved past, and the journey downwards can continue. And yeah, I think the validity of that, I think, it's not like we've just come from a random area. We've come from producing a new all-time high in terms of not just printing above the high, but producing a high anyway, producing that kind of new all-time high. We have just come from taking the maximum high, which we produced back in 14th of July. So to not expect us to have a bit of a longer term movement, or not longer term movement downwards, but if we really look at it like on the daily, for example, it's like, okay, when we shouldn't technically see a concerning low until we hit 112. So to retrace down deeper than 117, 678 isn't that hard to say. I don't think so. So I think we can continue downwards. And if we can expect that from the daily, what does that mean for the lower timeframes? That means we're going to be officially starting this downtrend. That means on the 4 hour, we'll be printing it past 116 and really starting this downtrend downwards. And I do expect us to come towards these areas once more. We do have support here. Again, I don't think this is going to be, I don't think, it could stop us. Yeah, but I don't think 114 is going to, boom, there you go. That's it. Bitcoin is going back up. It's going to go to 140K. But, you know, if we go to the weekly now, it's like, yes, we have these wicks, and we are still outlying on this move. If we, obviously, I talked about it in the morning stream. So, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to go over it again and again, but, you know, really just paying attention to it, we still need that move, you know, that move to that equilibrium, that move to really consolidate everything. You know, we didn't really have it here. We didn't come to that equilibrium. We haven't fulfilled any of this gap majoritively. We still are producing new highs. Once we have that major reversal, especially with here, we didn't produce an engulfing candle or none of that sort of stuff in this move. Again, yes, we did come into this gap, but we didn't produce. If this candle printed any higher towards 120k, we could be using this as a bit more of a support, but it's not really an engulfing candle or anything to find bullish support. Yes, on the daily, we do potentially have bullish support down below us, but on the weekly, we're clearly slowing down quite heavily in this move. And if we compare some of this sort of stuff than previous price action, it could be relative. We're not really expanding. We've had this expansion move retracement, a smaller expansion. And yes, we have had a bit of retracement, but we're kind of just hovering. And if you just look at the candle bodies only in this case, we can see we've kind of produced a bit of a range here. We've not really got much higher than 119.5 in terms of printing upwards. But if we can start to, you know, actually come downwards on every time frame, obviously, again, it has to translate to the weekly. You know, it has to take multiple candles on the daily to hit the weekly, to translate, if you know what I mean. So, again, that is something to pay attention to. But I think as this moves, especially what my opinion is on the lower time frames, all the way up to about the daily, it is majoritively negative. If that continues to happen on all the time frames, that will translate to the weekly, and that will therefore start us to move downwards. And especially if we start to come towards 112 and print lower, yes, we do have this gap. And if we look from the major low to the high of this move, we haven't quite produced past equilibrium here. So even if we start to come towards 109, 108, as I have also talked about previously, I would expect support. Similar as we've talked about with Ethereum, where we've had 2,800 as our major support point, a major low, we found support at 3,500. Same thing here, kind of on the weekly, where yes, even though the major move from the low to the high suggests we should come to about 100k, you know, 90k in this, to fulfill some of this down towards, you know, 95, whatever the exact price is going to be, we still have that potential area in here. And we do have this low that obviously 112 would be a significant low to come past and probably start to come back upwards again. But, you know, once we print past that, yes, it's like, oh, well, you know, there's liquidity there. Yeah, sure. But that's just us printing past the low, probably producing a lower high and then continuing a downtrend from here, which would then spark us coming down towards actual major lows and then continuing this whole move we have. So, you know, I think that's, it's not crazy to say that, you know, and if we really take that into account as to what price would want to do, if it wants to continue downwards, especially as we see on the weekly, we have really awful price action in terms of we're not really expanding, we're not really doing much. We're kind of just in this kind of consolidation phase. So I could expect a pretty drastic move in a certain direction, and once that occurs, I think we start to dump. Especially if we are doing this on the weekly, it's Saturday. Bear in mind, if we can translate this to, if we can continue to do what we're doing right now towards Monday, Tuesday for that weekly print, I think if we start to see a bit of a pump upwards towards some of these resistance areas, if we do, that could be our that could be a bit of a catalyst as well to start a movement downwards, seeing as though we have just not moved really. So I do definitely think we continue downwards quite easily. We probably will find support in this area, yeah, I think we'll continue downwards. And again, my long-term vision for Bitcoin right now is still going to be coming down to those major lows before we pump up to do another all-time high. So yeah, that will have to happen at some point, you know what I mean? So, and we can see here, this is clearly a reversal. This is a clear reversal. And yes, obviously, you know, I'm saying that, oh, look, you know, we're putting past the low is clearly a reversal. But obviously, I've drawn this so many times, and people draw head and shoulders and whatnot. And it's like, okay, and I've talked about why I agree with them. It's, okay, yes, I don't care about the left shoulder. I really don't give a crap. All I care about is this, in terms of coming to an area of importance, producing that max high, expanding. So instead of having a retracement, we've expanded downwards. This is clearly the downtrend. And again, I know I'm like, you know, 5 days too late to really say this, but you know what I mean, I can still talk about it. So clearly this isn't just an expansionary move to take out lows and then pump back up with all-time highs. This is clear, I think, is clearly a reversal, clear as day. And yes, okay, cool. We found resistance on that daily order block. We could probably continue to do that. And on the 1 hour, we should realistically retrace 118.5 and then continue downwards, realistically. And I don't think we've come to a certain... I mean, yes, there's a bit of a gap here, which we've filled, but we kind of already did that, you know what I mean? Like, we had this area here. We've pretty much filled it in this wick, and then we retraced that resistance, and then we've done a new low here. So I don't really think this is going to be major support or anything of the sorts, because you can see we've wicked to it here, and we haven't pumped back upwards. We've fulfilled this area. So there's not really major support on the left-hand side or major liquidity where I could expect us to reverse and really start to pump towards 121k to find a new max high. This is massive expansion though, massive resistance. But obviously saying that, I don't think we have much ground to pump all of a sudden, and especially if we have continuous expansion downwards, I would expect us to find resistance in this general 118k area to do new lows. So again, I would expect price to continue to target 116.5k and continue downwards. And as we do that, as we print past some of these areas, yes, if we come past 116.3 or 115.8, we will find retracements from these prices. However, I think it's going to continue that downtrend. As we continue expanding downwards and retracing, we will continue to form, continuous internal resistance in this downtrend, which will keep us down, keep us in the downtrend, keep us doing new lower lows as we venture down towards 109k, whatever it's going to be in the long term. So yeah, Bitcoin, I think we're continuing downwards. Let me read the chat. I have not read the chat in a long time. I'm on Binance Square. I'm just seeing for the chat, not really. Price currently being capped by the 30-day rolling view up. I do not look at the view up. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's like a normal resistance support type of thing going on. So yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different things you could probably look at which have a general resistance in this area, because again I would be surprised if you didn't. Okay, if you're someone who uses an oscillator or something, and we've just come from producing a new all-time high and wicking past the major high to then expand downwards, and your oscillator isn't saying we are having this dump, do not use that oscillator. Find a better one. Okay, do you know what I mean? Because like, what oscillator is going to go, oh yeah, we've just, obviously oscillators aren't that smart. I can't say they're going to look at the chart and go, oh yeah, well, we've just done all, this, that, the other. But in the sense of an oscillator looking at the chart, it's like, well, we've just done a new all-time high, and if we wick past a old, the relatively new, old, whatever, all-time high, we've wicked past it, and we've expanded downwards really fastwards, which has allowed us to print past the current uptrends low on the 4-hour, and we've continued the downtrend to produce a new lower low, and your oscillator isn't saying we're going to continue downwards, and your oscillator is saying we're going to start to reverse and come back up towards, XYZ, get rid of it and use a better one. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could be wrong, again, not financial advice, but do you know what I mean? Yeah, I agree. We could still see a push-up going to the weekly open, but the flow still remains down. So yeah, that's what I'm saying, because I think this, what we have here, is very similar to what I've been saying on the weekly, where, or on the hard time frames, where, yeah, okay, if you have a massive expansion upwards and don't really retrace and do a major retracement to find a new low, your low is going to be where you started that expansion. But as soon as you find that resistance and find that all-time high and have a actual considerate retracement to form a lower, let's say 116, your new low to target to reverse into a downtrend or to start going to a downtrend, relative, if you're just looking at printing past lows or highs to start a downtrend, the new low isn't going to still be 98k, it's going to be 116. Same thing here, where, okay, for this massive expansion, which, again, we've just come from an all-time high. This is going to be the most important area currently for Bitcoin right now. And we've had a little poo of a move back upwards and a tiny little expansion downwards coming from a daily resistance. We have the midpoint of that daily resistance at 121.2. We have equilibrium at 126.46. So that's why I am saying, yes, I think we'll see some sort of resistance at 118.5 relative to the 1 hour. But I personally, and this is kind of going against, because again, if I was to just, just look at retracements, just look at this, I would say 118.5, and wipe my hands clean. There you go. We're going to 116, and I have said that. But in my conscious analysis, based on what I'm looking at, I would expect. I could be wrong. I would expect price to reach higher than where we are now. This is like putting a flea in a jar and closing the lid and opening it up. A week later. Yeah, okay. This is an awful analogy. Really awful analogy. Let me think of a better one. You guys know what I mean. It's like, this is pathetic. Like, comparison to what we've done, and we've hardly moved up into it because of this daily resistance. This is going to be so important. So I would expect price to retrace deeper. And also, I know I just said, oh, well, if your oscillator is saying retracement, put it in the bin. But again, you know what I mean? Like, I'm talking more on a long term. Then I'm on the 1 hour here. I'm talking more like if we've just come from all-time high, and your oscillator is saying, it's like, oh yeah, we've had a divergence, massive buy now, all the way up to the highs. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think we're gonna do that personally. But this, at least, like this. Okay, if we get past if we get past this and go towards 122 and a half, 123, oh my god, I'll eat. I don't know. I'll eat dirt on stream or something. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this is just ridiculous. But anyway, maybe we can go to 121 and then go back. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something. It's like, even though I have on my chart, technically that's the new high. It's like, oh, we found resistance. This is the new high. This is the new low of this range. We should see 118 and then dump. There's something in the back of my mind, and yes, the back of my mind has been wrong very dramatically previously. So obviously, you know, we can't take it as gospel, but it's like, I would be very surprised if we didn't edge back up. And considering we haven't come past the low and then started to retrace. What is this price action? Do you know what I mean? Like, we've formed a support. Obviously, we've come into past these lows. We formed this candle and engulfed it, and then we found support, found support. We actually had this candle as well, kind of come upwards, and then we expanded, and we probably found a bit of support here. We've kind of got a bit of a gap going on here. So if we look at it on like the 15-minute, we kind of have a little bit of a range here. But then we're just like not doing anything in this move. We're not doing anything. It's like, and especially on the 50, like, what is this price action? Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think it's kind of like a volcano. We're kind of like bubbling up to then do a big move. And if we look at it on the 4 hour, we are just retracing. Do you know what I mean? Like we do just have a bit of this, but I wouldn't really consider this a major move down. This isn't really a major move. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've had this before where, I could be wrong, but I don't know. It's just me, it's just me, I guess. But I would expect price to continue higher a bit more. We have this, maybe. We have a massive down move coming past his low, come into a gap, engulf, use daily resistance, come past. We now have this. That's probably why we have a bit of resistance, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. All right. It makes a bit more sense now. So what this is, why have I drawn this? And yeah, you can call like, oh, well, this is just like, oh, well, if you find support and then you don't use it, how is it resistance? All that sort of crap. But I know it's like, I think a lot of things, like, you can go learn something, right? And try and learn how to a certain method, because again, there's like hundreds of methods out there which have degrees of success and work. Absolutely, go do it, be happy. But I think it's like, I think across the board, a general thing would be, let's say it's a formation or a checklist, if you will. We've come to this gap in this area in this week, and then we've retraced higher, but we've come to daily resistance. And it's kind of like, what trumps what? So it's like, yes, okay, we've formed support here. We've had this candle, we've engulfed it, we've started to come upwards, and then we found daily resistance, and then we've come down. This was technically an order block, which we have now printed past. So this is now going to be resistance, or breaker block, if you will, in theory. And I could expect that. We can see that here. We've reached to these areas. Obviously we're still coming upwards now, but we've reached this area. Obviously found move downwards. Obviously formed this area as we fulfilled the gap and came past these lows and whatnot. And then we've come up, visit a support, whatnot. So we're kind of just, that's why we're in this area. Look, if you look, this is the high of this order block. This is the midpoint of this 4 hour order block. Mid of this breaker block. Top of this support and the midpoint here as well. So if you just do a wider range, we can see this whole move we've had has been in between the midpoints of both of our support and resistance. So that's why I'm so confused. It's like, why have we had this? Well, it's because of that, in my opinion. So we've actually formed resistance and support on both ends from this 4 hour and this 1 hour. So we can see we have this move down. Obviously we have these wicks and whatnot in this general area, and then we've engulfed upwards with this candle, and obviously we've come to the midpoint. We've used it. But just looking at the wide range of the equilibrium, we have this area at 117, and we have this midpoint at 117.8. 117.8. So that's why we have top and bottom. So that's pretty cool. That makes sense. So if the range is in between these highs and lows, I would consider this consolidation, considering we have a really close range low and a high. So if we have a manipulation above or below one of these areas, I would expect there to be a pump. So what we could maybe see is, if price doesn't get higher and we continue to do this, we don't form support and we're just chopping, I could expect, because if we're going to come up to this high and then chop, we're just going to come down. Like, we can't just chop forever. So we're either going to pump and then or dump. I don't think we're going to pump, considering how much we've spent in this range. So I think we could probably dump. If we get towards around 116.9 and just teetering onto 116, then I would probably expect that expect reason for that move if we're on the idea that, oh well, you know, even though this is what the price, you know, this is what my retracement says, I don't think that's going to happen. I think we go higher. That could be reason for it. But anyway, I always yap for Bitcoin so long, but that's my opinion. I do still think we'll come a bit higher than what we have here technically. I don't care what this is. You know, I don't care if I'm wrong. This is what I feel. This is my opinion. This is my feelings. Okay, let me have my feelings. And then we come a bit more. 121, yeah, absolutely. So as you said, Tio, about 121, you know, coming up above this area. I think 121.3 could be a good price. Again, this is around the midpoint of that daily resistance we formed. And bear in mind, we formed it from wicking past the all-time high of Bitcoin. So this is going to be quite a resistant area. So do you know what I mean? Like I'd rather bank on more of a higher move than expect us to come here and then get taken out. I'd rather miss a trade than take a losing trade. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd rather go wide and miss than take a little trade at 118.5 for a new low and then get absolutely, you know, wrecked. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I'm gonna leave off with. So Solana, Ethereum. Let's do Ethereum first. I think I looked a bit more on the lower time frame for Ethereum. So what were we looking at? We had obviously chart. We had this low to the high. We talked about this, and then we've had this downtrend, and we had this here. But obviously, bearing in mind with this, we had that previous resistance. So again, similar to Bitcoin, to be fair, where it's like, yes, obviously we have had a new high in this trend, and we have retraced and kind of expanded away a bit. But we also just want to bear in mind the fact that we have just wicked past this all-time high. Oh, not all-time high, relative high. The second all-time high. No, the second most all. No, the all-time second high. Whatever. I'm tired. The second high, the second last high before the all-time high. And then we've moved down, and then we start to reverse from this area. So again, we've pretty past this low in this major move. On the 1-0, again, if we look at it here, it's like, you know, the low is abound here. We have retraced. We have found a bit of a stop here. Also want to bear in mind, we've come to this gap we've formed here. We are going to probably find a bit of support in this area, but it's not really an proper expansion. And bear in mind, we have this massive expansion downwards, and it'd be foolish for me to say, oh, well, we're just going to retrace upwards when we are clearly expanding. We are clearly expanding downwards and retracing. So I would consider this a continuation for or a move down to, or a, it was continuing downwards anyway. For this, but again, I still stand with Ethereum probably coming back up towards its all-time high. Because again, if we look at it, again, doom and gloom on the 4-hour, doom and gloom on the 1 hour, but look at it on the daily. It's like, okay, we have this move. We're just about coming below equilibrium here. If I shimmy this down for this gap to be around this low to this high and draw it across, we're only really just coming below equilibrium now. I could expect us to still use this as support. Oh, I just deleted it. To continue to use this support. Again, we do have this gap. I did talk about this, and this, to be fair, is the major move. So I think relatively shorter time frame, we do have obviously this range from this low to the high. If you consider it that low, we're only just coming to this area now for a bit of a support point. So we could retrace, but again, we've started this downtrend. We've done we've wicked past a second all-time high, really, you know, sensitive area. So I would consider Ethereum to be in a downtrend right now, especially massive expansion to produce this massive low. Here coming into this kind of coming into this gap area here, you can see we've wicked about to the midpoint, come upwards again, come into this expansion area, come to about the midpoint, and then dumped again, printing past this low. We're clearly in a downtrend. We do have this gap. We're kind of hovering a bit. We might have found support a bit more. We might have kind of formed support a bit. We've come into this area. If we start to engulf this candle, this will probably be support. Start a bit of a move upwards, but I would still expect, you know, a move here. And again, if we use this as our retracement, and we consider we're now in a downtrend, and we're using this as our retracement, going to maybe let's say the 15 minutes. It's a bit bad on the 15 minutes. It's got a 1 hour. Yeah. So high to low, we're kind of here. It's sitting at about 4,500, whatever this is exactly here. About, you know, sitting 4,500-ish, 4,520. So I would expect the price to kind of retrace a bit more up into here. We can have a bit more detail on this support here. Actually, we can see with this, we have this move downwards. This wick past this low, you know, this equal low, kind of relative equal low, but kind of shimmy little past it here, little kind of candle guy over here, and then actually pumped and then used the midpoint. Again, that's the thing, you can't just like magically print it. It's not like, oh well, you know, we've done this and then we printed upwards. We've actually And the difference between it here as well is we've actually come a bit deeper past this low, for example. We actually have we have kind of this here, but I wouldn't really consider that too much support because there's not really much reason for that. But in this case, we kind of do have reason, especially if we watch it. We have the print of it. We actually print upwards quite strongly, and then we wick back up into the midpoint, wick towards the midpoint, and then continue, and then we start to use it support, and then we've kind of come down into printing around the midpoint here, and then we're starting to shimmy a bit. We had a tiny gap here, which I guess we filled, but we haven't really found too much resistance. We have this, we've already filled. I think we could probably shimmy up a bit, but I still stand with us having a move down for Ethereum and continuing that move downwards. And yes, we are at this equilibrium point. So look at it, rather on the 1 hour, the 4 hour, I would expect us to find resistance here as we are continuing this downtrend. And looking on the daily as we have, yes, I did look at this little range, but the major low to the major high is this range. Considering we have come on the daily, wicking past that second all-time high, or the second high before the all-time high, and we are starting to come down, and we reversed on the 4 hour. So we reversed on the lower time frame, and we whipped past a relatively high interest high. I would expect us to continue downwards deeper and probably come towards equilibrium, about $4,000. And then, as I said this on the stream, coming back to back down towards about $3,900, $4,000 in this range. Anyway, down here, and then I do expect Ethereum to probably aim back up towards its all-time high and do a new high, because that would be really, that'd be really strong, especially on the weekly. If we look like we're not really in a concerning situation or anything of the sort. We do actually have this candle. This will probably be a support as well. And again, this is also sitting. So again, kind of a daily support point here, which is also sitting again 3,900, 3,933 again. Do you mean we'll go to 3,800? Yeah, but around that area. What did I say? I don't know. I must have misspoke. Apologies. But yeah, in terms of Ethereum daily, looking at that thing we've just produced, down candle, massive up close, which is wicked up into this area from that engulf. I would expect that to be support as well. And again, yeah, the midpoint sits about there. High end, it sits at around that start of this area, about 3,900. So I would expect that 3,900 area to be pretty sensitive. This is all the midpoint of this expansion we had. We haven't really retraced into it. This is a prime area, so I would expect 3,900 to be an area I would watch for Ethereum. Regardless of if we have this, similar to how I feel about Bitcoin. It's like, yes, on the 1 hour, we do have this retracement into this 4,300 area. And yes, we are, coming down, but we've already started a downtrend. And regardless of if we retrace to here and then come back upwards, we are expanding downwards. So I would expect there to be another lower high and continue downwards, regardless of what time frame we are. So yeah, that's kind of it for Ethereum. There's not really much else. I've already spoken about higher time frame, all-time high stuff. So I will jump onto Solana now. And then we'll kind of have a look at this. So I've kind of already talked about daily, talked about this wick. We had this gap here, which we've kind of filled. We actually have this as again, we have this expansion. We've retraced and then engulf, whatever. So we have reason there with this expansion, and then coming back into it, and then using this. So we are coming towards that area. Also bearing in mind we have an actual uptrend move. So this is on the daily. I will jump down to the 4 hour in a second. About now, here we go. So we have this low, we have this high, which is wicked past this area. So again, we have grounds to think we could start a reversal, considering we've come past all these highs. We've come past a major high I've talked about for quite a while now, and we are starting to move downwards. So we have come to the midpoint of this area. We are continuing to expand downwards though. So all I could really expect this to be is a retracement downwards. So I mean, again, the major low is 173. I could expect there to be a bit of support here, but we are expanding downwards. It's not like it's a slow move downwards. We are pretty expansionary downwards. We probably will find support in this area and continue downwards a bit. But I think with Solana as well, it's like it's not really hit like a massive. I just hit the mic. There we go. It hit a decent area. To be fair, I obviously I have been talking about 220 for a while. I was looking at 220, but again, I do have to consider this is the high. This is still a very decent high for Solana with that previous wick. With this kind of uptrend, we had this kind of retracement. We had these really awful wicks here, and then massive dump from this period here. So this is I would consider an area, which obviously I've been saying since we kind of looked at it in this downtrend. We looked back and I saw that, we as a collective anyway, saw that high, and then since this whole move have had that marked out, and then obviously we've come past this high and this whole kind of trend going on, and we've wicked past that high by a tiny smidgen and started to move back downwards. So I think it's not so much like I think we could go. I think we are still in this uptrend, and the major low is at 150.56. But I do think we could come down a bit further. But I think in Solana's case we do have a bit of support. I think in a Bitcoin's case we don't have too much support really. You know, we have major resistance. We've come from an all-time high. We have had a massive retracement. We've had massive expansion, and we're coming down. And I think in Solana's case, we are kind of in the same scenario, but I do think we are in a very I think we're in a bit of a different, in my opinion anyway, in a bit of a different scenario in terms of we actually have a bit more of a stack support, especially if we look up on the 4 hour anyway. We are still in this uptrend. We haven't really had grounds to think we aren't in this uptrend so far anyway. I think the only thing stopping me from saying, oh, well, we'll continue this uptrend is the fact that we've wicked past that high. But again, this isn't really a supremely high time frame resistance point. Yes, I think the thing is as well though is the fact that we are in this kind of daily. We've had this massive move downwards. We've had this massive retracement. But again, I don't think this necessarily means we're going to come past $95 for Solana. But it is a general area above 182, as I've talked about in the morning, where we would expect us to move back downwards. And if it's from the major lows to the major highs, and we are continuing this move, and the major thing about this on the daily though is we haven't printed past 205, so we technically haven't done a new high yet. So again, the major low is 156, but on the 4 hour anyway. And the thing is, I think on the 4 hour, though, to be fair, we've been in the uptrend. Daily wise though, we aren't in a downtrend until we start printing past the lows. But I think if we start to print past 174. That's not a shift or anything. We are technically changing state. We would continue that downtrend, but we haven't done that new high. So it's kind of like I'm a bit iffy on Solana. We have come to that major high, relatively major high, and we haven't printed past this high, and we've also wicked past it. This is also actually resistance now that I'm looking at it, because we've come past this high with this candle and engulfed downwards, and we can see we wicked into it and continue to use it as resistance. So this is kind of a we've kind of used this nearest midpoint as resistance. So we've actually found resistance in this area. So we've whipped past this, obviously sell in terms of sell liquidity, if you will, and we have this longer term resistance on the daily. And I don't want to go against the grain. I do think we are continuing downwards a bit for Solana, but I don't want to be negative and Nancy at the same time. I know I'm kind of going in circles with my words here, but sometimes it's just not a straightforward thing. Especially if it's my charts. I have a lot of lines on the screen. Sometimes it's just not straightforward, this, that, the other. But all I can consider right now on the 4 hour, we are in a downtrend until proven otherwise. It's like price is doing something until proven otherwise. We're in a downtrend until reason to stop. Same thing with an uptrend. Daily, we are in an uptrend until proven otherwise. We've been in an uptrend since we printed past these highs. We had this low, printed past this high, we printed this low, and then we've come upwards. But we haven't printed a new high, and we've whipped past another area of interest where there could potentially be a reversal. And on the 4 hour, we are starting. I mean, again, we start downtrends in these moves anyway, so it's not all bad. But I think we are getting close to this low, and we haven't really shown signs of slowing down super badly anyway. And if we really compare, and this is kind of what I want to talk about as well, relative is I think in comparison to some of these moves, this is very expansionary. This is a very big expansionary move upwards, but this is pretty hefty move downwards. So I think we are starting to. I think we're a bit deeper move. I think we're a bit deeper moving right now for Solana. And if we continue what we're doing and we start to get towards this 173 area, that probably wouldn't be a great thing for Solana. But I think because again, markets can move in their own ways, and Bitcoin's Ethereum's had this massive pump and continue to pump. And then Bitcoin's been dumping, and I'm allowed to give Solana a different outcome than what I have for Bitcoin. And I think what's conflicting me is that they are slightly in similar scenarios. And I think across the board on the 1 hour and the 4 hour, we are in similar scenarios. We have had this. Ethereum has wicked past that high, Solana's wicked past this high, Bitcoin's wicked past all-time high, and then we've started this downtrend. Bitcoin's been very rapid, and we don't have much support. Ethereum's case, we have massive expansion. and I think we have grounds to suggest we have massive support. Solana's case, we do have big expansions. We have some daily support points. We have had this retracement. So I think even though we haven't printed a new high on the daily, I think we're leaning closer towards an Ethereum scenario than the Bitcoin Solana, where Bitcoin doesn't really have support, doesn't really have expansion until we get towards 109k and get past some of these lows. We don't really have major support on the higher time frames. But I think for Solana, we do kind of have that. We do kind of have this major area. We do have some of these potential areas to hold at. So I guess obviously time will tell. But I would want to see Solana go a bit higher. Do you know what I mean? I don't. This obviously was the major area I was obviously talking about for a while. And it's not just as straightforward as saying, oh yeah, we'll just come to all-time high. Again, Bitcoin's very easy in that regard, where it's easy for us to understand where the turning point would be. The turning point for a coin which is at all-time highs is going to be doing a new all-time high. And I think Ethereum is in the same scenario. We haven't done the all-time high yet, but if we start to do that all-time high, again, very easy turning point. But for Solana's case, it's like there's not really a clear set-out turning point, which is very easy to say. I think for me, 218, 220 is a good turning point. Especially if we go back to the weekly, we look at this. Yes, we have started this uptrend in this move and start to move upwards. But I think we have printed past this low, but we haven't done what Ethereum's done, where we've had this kind of move up, print down, and then we've printed up again. We've had this kind of uptrend, semi-uptrend thing going up to here. But the important part is this massive expansion move downwards, where we've printed past these lows, and now we've had this slow retracement back upwards, where we've come into these certain areas. And if we pay attention to where the technical gap is, it is sitting actually technically within that 188 area. Now I'm actually looking at it. Even though that retracement is sitting at about 218, the major gap is actually around about there. On the weekly anyway, to be fair. If you go to the daily, yes, the gaps are sitting in between. But, in this area is technically where the resistance is, now that I'm looking at it. So I think regardless, I think we are in our main area of resistance, or main area to look for longer term reversal. We are above equilibrium. We have grounds to suggest with this tiny gap. We don't really have much more other than that. There's not really much of a gap. Technically, we could look at this as resistance. We technically have this move downwards, move upwards, move down, massive expansion, print past, resistance usage here above equilibrium. So that midpoint's about 203, which we've ripped past. So actually, no, I'm going to change my mind a bit here. Solana could be in its phase and have already hit its area for reversal. So Solana could be, we could actually be a bit more on the way down than I've been talking about currently. But it's interesting. Okay, let me actually give some actionable words. We are in this downtrend. We are continuing downwards. We've whipped past that high. I do think we could come a bit deeper. We are nearing that support at 180, coming down a bit. We haven't technically printed past a major area. Bitcoin's case, we have printed past. Ethereum's case, I still think it's in that uptrend. Solana, we haven't quite done that yet. So I'm not as negative as I would be on Bitcoin. However, as we've seen on the weekly just then, in terms of that retracement, anything above 182 as a major resistance point is what we want to focus on. And if we consider maybe a kind of an engulfed candle, which has then had a reversal at it, we could probably look at it here in this case. Coming into this area, we have this high which had that resistance, and then this high where we haven't stopped, and we've had these highs on the lower time frame which we've wicked past. I could suggest Solana coming down a bit to some of its resistance points, and we do have these supports on the way down. Again, we have this order block here which has come past this low, and then we have this propulsion block here which we've then actually used here as well. We haven't engulfed this candle. We haven't formed a new order block. So in terms of our uptrend, we have support here. We then form another support here. We didn't do another one here, and we are at an area where there could be reversal. So yes, we could come down towards 140 area for these support points. But if we start to print past some of these areas like 160, that's starting to be a downtrend in this case. And if we really pay attention to the wider trend of the fact that we have printed past this low and we've had a slow move upwards, we would want to look for a deeper retracement towards some of these areas. Again, at that point, it's like, what sort of areas can we focus on? I'm not going to say that area. We have some gaps here. We have this low. It's already been filled, to be fair. There's not really much major below us apart from some of these support areas at 120. So I do think we could see that reversal pretty soon. Again, this is the weekly, to be fair, but I could expect to see that reversal for Solana. I feel like I need to leave off of something like an actual number you guys can actually think about. 170, 180. I would like to see Solana continue down a bit more actually. Yeah, it's in such a funny scenario because yeah, the 4 hours printed a new high. The daily hasn't. We have retracement area. We have this massive expansion where there should be support. All we've really done is a downtrend to fill this expansion. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the midpoint of this. Where's the midpoint actually? It's sitting at about this area. The blue line's also sitting there. But again, we are expanding downwards. We're continuing downwards. It's not like we've just had a small retracement. We're actively retracing. So it's actually hard for me to say. But I can see right now. I think we continue downwards. So yeah, I think we continue down with Solana. Let's go to Syrup though. Let me actually, because I know I've just spent so long on Solana. Then going back and forth with my words. What are we doing? So let's actually do some easy stuff now. Thankfully. I can continue to talk about this. So, what did we talk about last? Thursday at 10 was here, 43. And I was saying, well, what could we do? I think we continue downwards. So what have we done? We had a gap here, in this area here. We had this gap here. We've actually come to wick at. I mean, again, regardless of what we do here, I really don't care. We're in a downtrend. And yes, obviously, we're going to print past 100, 44. Number one, we haven't printed past the high. Yes, we have. Oh, no, we haven't printed past. No, but we're fine. We have this massive gap. I don't care what we're doing right here. We could be coming up just to come down again towards the 44. So, I'm not, super concerned about this move. If we look at it here, that midpoint's about 145. We could have a bit of a deeper move back upwards. But, realistically, we've had these nice movements. Again, this is a bigger expansion than any of these previous expansions, really. If you look at the actual expansionary gap, the gap we've left in this move, it's been a straight line downwards. Midpoint, obviously, sitting about 45 cents. So I think we could retrace. It looks like we're just retracing upwards towards these areas. I think we're continuing this downtrend. I have no reason to believe that we have anything, especially if we look at the difference of expansions. We have this massive down move for a retracement upwards. So there's not really much an expansion here. There's not really an order block. There's not really support. If we look back, there's not really support. We do have these kind of wicks. And, on the way down, like, yes, okay, here, for example, we had this wick and we filled it. But then we had expansion, which we filled. Same thing here. We have a potential gap here, which we didn't even wick into. We've wicked to the midpoint. We've now started to come back upwards. And yes, I probably actually would have suggested we probably would have seen resistance in this area at 42. But we've actually come a bit higher. But I wouldn't be concerned in terms of seeing it continue downwards. Because, again, we have this massive expansion we've seen. Which we've barely even scratched. So again, 45 cent, probably a relatively low high for Syrup as we continue downwards. Especially if you look at on the daily, which is this general move. Yes, okay, we have had this expansion, which we've actually filled pretty deep, actually deeper than actually we've come to. And then we've just we've got this gap we haven't even touched at 48, and we have this expansion downwards, which obviously we're starting to come up into on the daily. So I do think we could continue a bit more. For Syrup as well. So yeah, price wise though, I think we should aim for. I mean, again, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, well, we have major move down, retracing into this gap, come to the midpoint or the ultimate area, and now we're coming down. So all I can really say is we should wait to watch to come towards 38.5, as I've said every other time. And the only time I would be concerned about that is if we start to reverse. We don't really have grounds to reverse. I mean, yeah, we have come past this low and come into this gap, but it's not really a major low. If we come past, again, if we print past 30.5 on the higher time frame, it's like, I don't care if it looks like we're reversing on the lower time frames because the dailies are downtrend and we've produced a new low, so it doesn't matter. So again, I think Syrup is coming down. I will end soon, don't worry. I will look at Sui quickly. I am slowly getting more and more coins to look at. What did we look at last though? Thursday 10, it was here. I think I was saying we continue downwards as we fulfilled this. So what have we done since the 10 o'clock? We moved back upwards a bit more. Obviously, we had this gap. We moved upwards a bit, and now we've moved back downwards. We've expanded again. We've had this gap. We've moved back upwards into it. So probably continuing this downtrend. The high concerning is about $3.88. So it doesn't really look like we've done that. Obviously, it would be interesting to see what we do if we come past this low. But this gap's majority have been, fulfilled. We've come to the midpoint. We've responded from this area and moved upwards into this retracement area on the wider time frame. We've just had an uptrend towards here, and now we've started to come downwards. And we are getting very close to print past this area where it's I mean, we've already produced a low here for this downtrend, so we are on the start of that move downwards for the reversal from coming up into this area and starting to come back downwards. To be fair, though, we do actually have this, as a potential support in terms of here, so we can see we kind of wick to the lower that, but I don't really see that holding too much of a support point. And in terms of an actual gap, on the higher time frame, we've completely used it. There's not really much support. There's no order blocks. There's no anything of significance as lows here. There's lows to target, but that's pretty much it. But once we have this move, we've printed past these lows and we've come up to retrace to here. The next thing is to aim for new lows again, which is $3.26. And if we look at the wider range of the weekly in this uptrend, yes, we have wicked towards this area at $3.36. But we are still coming down on the lower time frames to suggest we continue this downtrend. So I could expect price to come even lower, as I've already said before on the other streams, even deeper towards about $3. I think $2.90. I was talking about $3 in this area. So yeah. But I think for me to watch for a reversal on the weekly, it'd have to be the daily, and I don't see that. I don't see this as a reversal. We've just retraced into this gap. Massive expansion from taking this high, producing a new low here, and retracing into this retracement area. And on the lower time frame on the 4 hours, started a bit of a downtrend here, which it looks like we're continuing to do. So as I see it right now, if we continue to do what we're doing here, we should be targeting $3.26 and so on and so forth. So that's all I really have for Suri. So I know I'm 7 minutes over. I tried. Okay, I tried. Do you have a copy trading? I don't. We've had different places. We've used different places, but I don't have a copy trade as of right now. I think we were in talks of setting another one up for someone else, but I've never really been a massive copy trader. I know there's people out there who their main thing is copy trading. I have done it before, but only relatively small scale. I've not really done too much copy trading, but I mean, if tons of people want it, I could try it. But yeah, I don't really do copy trading so much. It's I don't really have anything, but I mean, if people want it, I could probably look into doing it. But yeah, I don't have a link to give you. I don't have it. I just do the charts, really. I just do the chart and that's it. You can trade it yourself. I mean, obviously I know, you want the automation, I guess, but best I can do right now is just give you what I think, not financial advice, and you can do what you want with it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I know I've yapped a lot about Solana because I was really trying to balance out the ups and downs of what I think with Solana. I think Bitcoin's a very straightforward thing to look at right now. Ethereum's a very straightforward thing to look at. SIP's a very straightforward thing to look at. Sui, I think, is also a very straightforward thing to look at right now. For some reason, I think Solana, in my personal opinion, for what I have, it's a lot. It's not as simple to look at. I think there's some nuances with how the price is moving. But obviously, I try to give a conclusion for all my charts. But about 10 minutes over again. I think I started maybe 3 minutes later, so only about 6 minutes. Not too bad. But I always do it. It's something I can never avoid. Next stream I will be doing is going to be on Tuesday. So you'll see me in the afternoon on Tuesday doing another stream. I think we have another quiz on Wednesday where we'll be doing another Jeopardy set. So if you don't know what that is, if you're new to the channel, we do quizzes on Wednesdays. And basically, the next one's going to be about Wolfswap. Basically, there's 30 questions, and you type in the YouTube chat and you answer the questions. And you get to potentially win crypto if you become top 3. And we've got Jeopardy now, and we've got normal. I know some people are very, some people are on the fence about Jeopardy because it's a bit of a more convoluted question and answer system, but I think it's a lot more fun to have a bit of a Jeopardy style questions as well. So if you're new to the channel, I would suggest subscribing and coming along Wednesday because it is a lot of fun. So other than that, thank you each and every one of you for being here. Appreciate you all for joining the stream and sticking by all my many words I say per minute. Again, I will be on the stream on Tuesday. I'll be back in the afternoon. I'm also on Telegram. If someone asks me, I'll try. I don't really get notifications. The problem is Telegram. Certain other social medias you get notifications, and it's normally quite easy. But I don't really have Telegram open all the time on my PC, and my phone doesn't really notify me properly. So if I'm not in the Telegram, and have it directly on my screen, I don't normally get notified. But whenever I am on Telegram, and I can be on Telegram, I try and answer everybody who adds me and stuff and says anything. So yeah, join Telegram in the description if you want to get involved in the community and want to get notified when we're going live and all sorts of stuff. But apart from that, that's all I've got left to shill. I don't have a $20 coupon if you sign up with xyz.com and you'll sell. You make $1 million in trading volume. I don't know anything like that. All I've got is the Telegram and joining the next stream. So out of the way of the chilling. Thank you all of you. Appreciate you all. I will see you all Tuesday. Have a great rest of the weekend. If it's the morning, have a great rest of your day. If it's the evening, have a great sleep. You know, sometimes one wrong sleep can set you back so far. So hopefully you sleep well tonight. Have a nice meal if you haven't already. All these sorts of things. And I'll see you Tuesday. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Goodbye.